Yes.
So I'd like to call to order the planning board subcommittee meeting of August 7th, 2025. I'm Jane Remsen, the chair of the subcommittee, and we also have Beverly Bookin, who is on the subcommittee. We're expecting Sean Henry by Zoom momentarily, who's the other member of the subcommittee. And we also have David Rosen, who's a planning board member. So we do have a planning board quorum, but he will not be participating. We have Greg Catamatori, our planning director of planning, and Eric Hinderly, our staff planner, and we also have Suzanne Egan, who's our city solicitor. Okay. And today we're discussing section 5.11, inclusionary housing requirements, zoning ordinance, and any updates or improvements we might want to make to that. Still waiting for Sean.
You see these, are you?
He's not an attendee.
I'm a panelist now, but I don't see him yet.
Did you send him a panelist link?
No, I thought he was just gonna come in.
Oh,
I didn't
no,
know he was gonna be remote. Oh, so does he
Send-
need one?
I can
Or-
tell him anything.
Yeah, if he just logs into the public link.
Please use the public link and Greg will. Okay.
He does. Great Zoom workplace.
Changes that.
It's, well, it's just, there was no like, hey, we're doing this. All of a sudden, it was just all different.
So is this a? So Greg, you can share the version of the inclusionary zone. That's- Misfiled.
So, so far, we've had some discussions about, prompted by, suggestion from Councilor Benson, as well as, there's been some input in the past from the Affordable Housing Trust around the scaling of potentially of in lieu payment and also the threshold. So we've had some discussions on that already. There were no decisions made in terms of how to move forward with it, roll that back into this draft. But I thought it was also important to, this ordinance is a few years old now. And there are a couple of operational issues, interpretation that could use some clarity. So bringing in some support from the legal office, Rocco and Suzanne have worked on a couple of sections that could be a lot clearer for the application of the ordinance, particularly as it relates to how it applies, and also some definitions that could be clarified. So if you want to take it from there.
Certainly. So I think the first, I think that we could go through it sequentially like that.
Yep, so this is the
Or-
definition section.
to
So that's the
add-
first proposed change.
Right, so so I think that to give it a broader review, I think that Greg is doing that, but at least that when I've looked at it, and I think my question case was also in front of the zoning board of appeals, we get into the issue of what constitutes, right, a development. That's the
Mhm.
first question. Is this a development or is this just different projects? And so does the ordinance apply? And so I think that the application for residential mixed development, to put that as a definition, that's a proposal to add that there so that there won't be any confusion. And this relates to the fact that we're making additional changes or proposing additional changes in section 511.3, where we talk about applicability. And I think the applicability issue comes up in review as to whether or not we put it that we talk about it in ordinance segmentation. This essentially we say in our ordinance, it's almost as though we're saying that if you do this, this ordinance doesn't apply. Because we're saying if you segment your property, the ordinance doesn't apply. Which you flip that, you say, okay, in order to make your project apply to inclusionary zoning not apply, do this, right? And there doesn't seem to, and I think that the intent of including the definition of segmentation in that language with regard to segmentation was to deal with an issue that we may not actually be faced with. So by taking out the segmentation and definition and how the ordinance doesn't apply, by just leaving that out, what you're doing is saying any application which meets the definitions as contained here in this ordinance are subject to this section, the inclusionary zoning section. And then you just leave it at that.
So what would happen if someone was planning on doing an A&R of 6 units and they read this and realized they wanted to get out of it and they decided to do an A&R of 3 units today and an A&R of 3 units later? So they would still fall under the contiguous definition of contiguous if it was less than 3 years, and if it was more than 3 years, they wouldn't, right?
Well, with this, if we're taking out the segmentation language.
I
about
guess I'm
30
Yeah, I'm a little confused because this looks like it's saying to add
It's saying
segmented
add.
development.
Yeah,
And that's kind
Oh,
of still tying
maybe
in
that
the
means,
30s.
was that part of the original? Maybe that's meant to delete.
No, the deleted
Oh,
part
I
is,
think
is
what-
the
Oh, yeah, no, there is no segmentation, there's no, so it would have been added.
Yeah,
There's nothing after,
Good.
well, the next
this
is,
is
there
the
is.
delete.
In
So the add is in lieu of
Segmentation
the
is-
delete? Is in lieu of.
That's for the applicability part, which makes sense. And it's number 2 that that kind of defines that what are the things that we're trying to accomplish. You
Right.
can't segment it. So it's basically just.
In order
that
to
provision
avoid the
says
requirements.
Can't be divided, phased, or sequenced in order to avoid. So that would
Yeah.
lead to your
Right.
scenario of, I do a 1 lot into 2 lots, it only has a yield of 4. But then it's big enough that I wait a period of time, I divide them both again. And that would have triggered it otherwise, but because I went beyond some sort of shot clock,
right,
that's not an issue.
pause 1 second,
Sure.
can you promote Sean?
I thought it there.
No.
Nope.
if I'm not participating, does that mean I can't ask questions?
I think you can definitely.
Yeah,
ask questions.
if you were sitting in the
Yeah,
audience.
you just can't make
Yeah,
decisions.
We've asked you to sit at the table.
And as long as you don't participate in the deliberation process, then it's just still the subcommittee deliberating.
Yep.
But you can certainly ask questions.
And my question is, does it mean that after 36 months, they could come in or no?
So I guess, and maybe this was kind of a little bit of a working draft, because I know
Yeah.
when Rocco was working on this, the things that came up that were challenging were defining what a development site is, because there's a couple of different things. We talk about a project that results in 6 or more units. We talk about the gamut of what an application is. So I think, the first goal was like, okay, let's make sure that we're very clear about the terms that we're using, because we kind of talk about the same thing in a slightly different way. Because at one point, we're talking about applicability. At another point, we're talking about applying a standard to those, that applicability. So it may be that, I think maybe that's one that can not be included, which is the definition of segmented development, because now the applicability states you can't do it. So there is no timeline at this point. If you own a piece of property and you start dividing it up, at some point, if it was in common ownership, it's going to trigger. It's
Regardless of the
Right.
time.
it's challenging. I mean, if someone were to wait 10 years, that might be tough to, but if somebody was looking on the shorter term of saying, how can I avoid this and do, division. But that also could potentially be addressed if the threshold is lower. If we lower the threshold to 4
4.
units, there's
The
not
issue
too
is
much
moot.
you can do that's
The
not
issue
gonna
is
trigger
moot.
the ordinance.
And not
Because
only,
any 2 lots other than an RC 40 or, other than RC 40 really would have a yield of potentially 4 units.
How would this apply to what is going on in Atlantic? If this gets passed,
Well, it's already applicable. They were already over the threshold.
they were approved for 14.
So they do have an inclusionary requirement now.
I think the problem that came up at the ZBA was more a question of timing.
Yes.
But I thought that he could run out some type of clock that we had set. So by removing the clock is what you're saying, then there is no clock.
Right.
So don't bother.
Yeah, just to respond, I just went down there yesterday. Wasn't it 14 units was the initial tranche that never got
Mhm.
built?
With the
It was, yeah,
Yeah.
then on 7 duplexes, but they're building 3 single-family homes there. I'm not sure if it's on that property or just happens to be adjacent.
That's a separate
It's a
ownership.
separate, okay. But the other thing about the 3 years, I mean, I won't weigh on because I kind of want to hear more about it, is that there is a financial penalty to the owner to wait 3 years in the sense that they don't recoup the profit from the land they bought. In other words, that's a balancing consideration and you can hold the 3 years, but then you lose some.
if they bought the property, but if they
Oh,
had
yeah,
held
this
the
is-
property for a long time and the market,
Yeah, that's
Was-
true.
was
I'm
not
just
there.
saying, yeah,
I think the one thing is important to keep in mind is we can try to draft the ordinance to capture it.
yeah.
But if somebody really, like, if their goal is to say, if this is not gonna apply,
Yeah.
then they're gonna find a way. You
Uh-huh.
can't bulletproof.
Right.
They sell the land and put it in
Yeah,
another
straw houses,
corporation.
yes,
They
yeah.
put it in another corporation.
So I think that what we really want to do, I think the goal is to draft an ordinance or make changes to the ordinance so that it's easily understandable and easily enforceable.
Yeah.
So that there isn't.
Or
a question.
interpretable.
Right,
Yeah,
right. So
if that's a
it's-
word.
Yeah.
That is.
And so
Understandable.
that we don't, so that we're not in situations where people are.
Right.
Arguing about the language and all the rest of it. And there is inconsistencies. I remember there's inconsistencies between the words, the terms that we're using. We use one term to mean one thing and with a different term to mean the same thing, but it's not lining up.
So I guess what we're discussing is actually take out this proposed segmented development paragraph.
I think so.
Yes. I
Yeah,
would
we're
definitely do that.
getting rid of,
Yeah.
so
Okay,
the applicability used to have that number 2, that's red line.
Yeah.
That's where the 36 months came in.
right.
I think the first cut was, let's make it clear
define
what
that.
that
Yeah,
definition
when
is.
the
But
time-
then when you see the revised, as Suzanne said,
Yeah.
if it's, the intention is, we don't want projects segmented, then we're not gonna give a timeline that sort of defines an ability
Right,
to segment
Right.
or violate,
And the other thing that I always thought of in terms of segmentation is that projects can be phased, right? A special permit can be
Mhm.
alive for many years past the 36 months. So if you have a special permit that's alive, but then you're saying, you're sort of saying in your inclusionary zoning ordinance, hey, after 36 months, it's a saying, this doesn't apply, but your special permit is alive. So it's kind of inconsistent with zoning.
so it says segmented development here. do we need to have in definitions what segmented development is?
Where does it say that?
Oh,
It
yeah,
says,
the requirements of
add
section
number
5.11 shall apply.
shall apply to
Yeah,
segmented
yeah,
development.
and I
So
think that's their I think that was added, that this is Rocco's proposal, and unfortunately he couldn't be here at the last minute. But I think he did that because he had also that definition
So-
above. So if you take out the above definition,
Right.
you scroll up
If you go up, yeah,
and take out segmented development,
Yeah.
then you don't need that,
So it's just all development, in fact,
yeah, so you just take out
shall apply to,
notion of segment.
So here's another thing, he adds the definition for proposed development site, but I don't see that term used anywhere. It's a very nice definition, and maybe we should be using it, but
Yeah, and then um,
no.
the reason he did that is because he's taking out number 3, which talks about contiguous parcels, any
Mhm.
parcel or contiguous parcels comprising a proposed development site. So since he was taking it out there, I think he added it there, but it doesn't make sense.
Unless
But
it's
even
used,
though if
unless the
you-
term is used.
Right, if you, under the new number 1, you could say shall apply to any application for residential or mixed use proposed development. Site. That results in, right, because then that gets back to being contiguous.
And going back, contiguous is with the private way
Oh, I guess. it is.
between,
It is. he did-
including directly opposite of way, are under common ownership or control. What residential construction? Okay, so that, but not a street, only a private way. Right?
No, it's
So-
a public.
Oh, public. So in other words, if you have two parcels across a public street in common ownership, that's a development center. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, you are directly opposite. Oh, no. Including, that's weird, including parcels opposite a public or private
Yes, I don't know what that means.
way. It seems like they would be on a public or private way.
Well, they have to be on public street in
Yeah,
order
I
to be
know.
a legal lot.
that
So
is what
that's
it's trying to say, like if it's
saying that,
the same
yeah,
ownership.
but a private way, it seems to me, has a different connotation of ownership than a public street. Than two parcels owned by the same person directly across a public street. I think that's different.
You think it's not the same, that's not a development site?
Well,
I don't think of it as a development site from a land use standpoint. I think it's separate. But a private way is a agreed upon easement essentially, or maybe it's actually been created as a, if not an easement, what's the word? It's been actually created and mapped
As a right of way.
as a right of way. But the fact is that it's in a property
Could be
where
a lot.
we're allotted with a common driveway and they're opposite each other in common ownership, that to me is, can be argued as a development site. But a public street is unless people come in and develop them at the same time, they're permitted at the same time, that
But-
creates a development site.
That doesn't say that. This says, it doesn't say parcels opposite each other. It says parcels opposite a public or private way, it actually doesn't.
Yeah,
Just-
right, I'll take
so-
that.
so it's a-
Yeah.
yeah, just say parcels directly fronting on a
Would it work
public
in-
or a private.
Yeah, that's
way or-
better.
Well, I don't think you need to say, you don't need that phrase at all.
Yeah.
Well, but if it fronts on a public right of way, it needs to front in order to be a legal lot.
Right, so it's not, we don't need
So
to
I
say
don't
it.
think you need to say it.
You say one or more contiguous parcels. land
Yeah.
Under common ownership or control, where residential construction or.
So Jane, to your question, where you were saying. Down at the bottom, under the requirements of section 5.11 shall apply to all, what's the phrase up above? Proposed,
Yeah, proposed development. site.
Development sites,
all proposed development sites. Is that what it should say?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it says. That's what it, so
Yeah, we gotta use,
Oh, it does
It's-
say.
It's an ad,
Yes.
right? So proposed development site is in,
Right.
Under
but it's
definition.
not capitalized, yeah.
yeah.
And also, what if the two parcels are not in the same zoning designation?
Hmm.
Yeah,
doesn't
I
matter.
don't think it really matters, but
Because
In other-
It would just be the yield, like,
It just determines, because the way I always thought about it, and I'm not, I'm an expert in Massachusetts law, and I'm not even Oxford, Oregon law, but if you have common ownership, that property line is sort of just kind of disappears. I mean, the development site, an internal lot line is not you don't have to have setbacks. If you own the property and you don't have to have setbacks, for example, it becomes a common site this way with, you see what I'm saying?
the lot
yeah,
merges, right?
we always prefer for somebody to, create a combination
Right.
of the
So it's
two,
a
so
single
that you don't
lot,
have,
so you don't have.
so
a
that you
lot.
don't run into that issue,
Yeah.
because otherwise, the building inspector, if you were just, you own two lots and that were not developed,
Yeah,
and you were proposing to put a house right in the middle,
yeah,
which is bisected.
Yeah.
Say you have an issue there.
see, in order.
Because I would have to,
Yeah.
I would have to take the setbacks from somewhere, either erase the line. Alternatively, if there were two undersized lots that had already merged, it's still just cleaner to
Well, yeah,
erase the lot.
maybe under Massachusetts, on
Yeah.
Oregon law, it says that a shared internal lot line doesn't create, you know what I'm saying?
It's,
Yeah,
it's
so
moot
it's
if you
not,
come
it's
in with a
moot,
development proposal.
it's
Yeah.
moot, yeah, unless they're in separate zones.
Mhm.
In which case,
Right. Then there's
yeah, then. you
different
have
standards being
Different
applied.
standards
Right.
apply.
Just checking under number one, the zones that it applies to. CB, is that have residential in it?
Yes.
That's like
That's where we get
Main
mixed use
Oh, right.
downtown.
Central business, right?
We have EB and NB
And
and
what's CCD?
not EB.
Central
Civic-
Civic District, that's around here.
Civic Central, yeah.
So like,
20.
Oh,
that's a house there.
oh, okay. Is that kind of the historic?
Are there any other zones besides these?
Well,
Industrial.
yeah,
Industrial.
There's like
commercial
business park.
industrial.
An
Business Park,
industrial.
industrial park.
So there's
Uh,
EB,
Essentially, anything that's
MIG,
mixed use that allows housing, mixed use,
And there's no residential use allowed.
Marine industrial is not there.
No.
So Suzanne, while we have you here, do you have any opinion on what, if we reduce the threshold from 6 to 4 units? Pros and cons to that?
Legally, not necessarily. I think what would be smart to do, which I haven't done, can do, is to sort of do a survey is to see how that lines up with the rest of Massachusetts in terms of inclusionary. I don't know if you all have had that chance to do that. But
It's kind of all over the place.
is it, it's
Yeah,
for, it's.
I haven't looked for that specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it would be interesting to see what the lowest number is. Because
it's on
I
the
think a
strict
lot of-
side. It's on the
I
strict
think
side.
4 is kind of I don't know which towns or cities have 4, but you do.
Oh,
I
they
think
do?
Maybe have 3
some do
or
three?
less,
Wow.
but I don't think any.
Oh, yeah, we
I don't
think so.
really know.
It would almost. Four seems like.
I think it's almost a financial
I mean, you could
issue
probably
whether,
find some.
whether a developer can develop 3 market rate and absorb. Also afford that, I guess.
Right.
I mean, it's almost an economic issue rather than some issue.
Did we once talk about?
Brookline has 4.
Oh, Brookline does?
Who has the?
Brookline, according to ChatGPT, which could be right, could be wrong. Many municipalities range from 5 to 9. A significant number use 10.
I think one time, Greg,
So
you and I
it
talked
really
about
is all-
doing graduated.
Well, that's
Right.
separate.
That's-
Yeah,
Is
so.
that separate?
So the threshold question of like, when do we start either? I think it'll become very apparent for smaller projects if there's in the lieu payment option, that's what they would be doing. But we would basically be saying 15%, we round up 4 units or more. And then we had the provision, which could be adjusted 4 to 9 units, could make an in lieu payment. And at the last couple of meetings, we showed a schedule. Right now, it's tied to the 3-year median value of sales. And we kind of went backwards from that to percentages as you go down from a 9-unit project to 4-unit project. So that a 4-unit project would, I don't remember, it's like 20% of that value,
25?
25% of that value.
1 and 2 scenario, one is 137, one is
Yeah.
55.
So, I mean, this is, it's a little bit of a trade-off. You definitely, for
Oh, I
4 and
see.
5-unit projects, they didn't have to contribute in any way in the past. So the 6 to 9 units or 6 to 8 units would now be seeing this option that's more of an option than being treated the same as a 6 versus a 9. So it's a couple of things moving at the same time. One of the things that we did do in the multifamily overlay district effort was we had our inclusionary modeled for its economic feasibility.
That's right, that's right.
And it demonstrated we could go down to 3. And we talked about at the last meeting how we aren't
In other-
really
in other words, it
interested
could
in
be-
going down to 3, just because that would also then
Yeah.
result in us
We
having to
don't
go
need to
back
open that
to the AG
drama.
because we'd be
Oh,
adjusting
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
MFOD.
yeah.
So we thought we'll just park that
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
But also the 4 units is what was prompted by Councilor Benson. So I think, that's where we arrived at,
Mm.
looking at the schedule that I think we've heard. Again, we will never know, but we've heard, from some representatives and developers saying, the price for the in lieu is too high. So this would accommodate in some way,
Right.
because there is no sub threshold.
Yeah.
If somebody is
Yeah.
thinking about doing a 5-unit, they're not gonna do a 3-unit because there's a requirement. If somebody's gonna do a 4,
Right.
they're not gonna do a 3, I think there's, so it's basically saying almost every project has to contribute in some way,
Mhm.
but in a very kind of
Graduated.
graduated measured way. It's still, it's a cost, but that's the challenge is we're building market rate much faster than inclusionary. So it's not achieving our 10% goal. We're subject to 40B applications, that could walk in tomorrow. And that's what we've heard through comp plan process, through the last housing production plan process. I'm sure we're gonna hear it again. We have to figure out ways to increase the housing stock. So it's
Increase the
either
affordable housing
you
stock.
provide it, or you make a contribution, and the Affordable Housing Trust has, its ability to then help other projects to produce.
And you'll notice that this project that I talked about that is down at Atlantic Road where they're building 3.
Mhm.
They could build 6, it could be 3, could be 3 duplexes.
They are building 3 singles. yeah,
But
they
they
could
could
have.
build
They could have.
6.
Yes.
And the 6th unit would have been triggered.
Right.
Mhm.
Or they could have built 2 duplexes and a single family to
Right.
avoid it anyway, but they chose to go, and it says 3 high-end, single family.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it says, because it's near the ocean and it has water views, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Hey, Sean, do you have anything to say to comment or questions?
I'm happy to listen. I think you guys are all making valid points about everything.
Well, those are our 2 issues our 3 issues. So I'd like the fix. So maybe we can get a clean
Yeah, I think if we
draft.
can confer with Rocco one more time to make sure that,
Yeah.
I think it sounded like if we took out segmentation definition. and then- and then
Capitalized the other
And then
phrase.
change the phrase for proposed development in that
Mhm.
section 2. And then we can work, if we'll put together a draft that includes language that brings that fee schedule
Yep,
into,
good.
because that's a whole nother.
Yep.
I think we'll probably try to use language rather than a table, just because it changes all the time with that. So we'll build off of the 3-year median and then say for,
It'll be 85,
Projects
85,
can make a
70%,
new
right?
contribution based on the following, or a 8 units, blah, 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 so set it up.
So you're saying you're gonna still pin it to the 3-year median?
Unless anybody has other ideas.
No, I think that's right,
Yeah,
because it's gonna change.
right.
And it's going
And then you're gonna say 9 is 100%, 8 is 85%, right?
And go down to 4.
You go down the floor.
Okay.
And is that a decision also, everyone? Sean, everyone, not including David? Sean, Beverly and Sean, a
absolutely.
decision to go to 4 and from 6?
Yes, I would be in agreement with that.
You would be in agreement, Sean?
Yes.
I think we should try it.
Okay,
But also the flat fee is a separate issue for 3, is it of 25 or
So
25?
I think in color, there's a hard bar there.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
was
yeah.
one of the things that I did just for demonstration purposes,
Yeah.
said we could, because we had the economic feasibility analysis to say you could do that. But I would not recommend doing it at this
this is
point.
Too much.
politically one of those things, I'm gonna say, that, yeah, that could trip it up.
Yeah.
Like, we could see how this works and how it goes over and how everyone feels about it, and then
It goes
in a
because of
year,
that
add,
one thing.
right, add,
Yeah.
add 3 to it in a year if we feel like it's
The 3
wildly successful and. there's
The
nothing-
3-plex issue is a big learning curve for the citizens of this.
Yes.
area.
Yes.
And so we don't want to put any more obstacles to, with upzoning to
Right.
realize that 3rd unit. I think
Right.
is-
Mhm.
Not this year.
Right.
Well, nobody can afford to build this year, so because of the tariffs on steel and, but that's beside the point.
Right, give David and me like another 9
Well,
months to recover it,
So
please.
with that guidance, you don't have to take a vote.
Right.
We'll get a clean draft
Okay.
for next Thursday. And if you're comfortable advancing that, then we can
Okay,
discuss it. You can make a recommendation as a subcommittee, and then we can discuss it at the planning board. And I know you won't be at those meetings,
I will not.
But- but we're hearing you loud and clear.
And I can vote that.
Then you
yes, you
for
can
that.
vote, you can talk and vote.
I'm going to the other port.
Okay.
Hmm.
Well, that was easy.
Well, you guys, it wasn't easy. You guys
Yes.
worked on it.
uh,
So easy when the staff work.
It's true. Well, we didn't notice anything else, on our agenda. But could we pick up USRD discussion?
Yes, I
Okay.
mean, you mean today.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Well, I don't have a lot new since the last time we talked.
yeah.
Um.
Let
And
me look at my list. And also, is there anything else we want to ask Suzanne about while we have her? The ADU thing.
Thing. Yeah, we're gonna work on I mean, I think
That might be nice to get your opinion, your informal opinion on what you think we should do
we should amend our,
to align with the state.
yes. And I think so, because I think it's, before I was sort of hesitant about it, but once it becomes the law and everybody's doing it, then I think we're noticed, right? Because we do have some aspects of our local ordinances and regulations that aren't in alignment. We have to say, oh, by the way, the state law has changed and we just haven't gotten around to changing our local ordinance. But I think at this point, it would be smart to bring it into.
And I think what's been happening at the zoning board until more recent is people have been operating under our ordinance because it allows for certain things that the state does not. But I think there was at least one case recently where an applicant has started to kind of mix and match.
No,
And that's where it's becoming a little bit more challenging, like you want to be clear in what the board is actually granting relief for if they need to by special permit. And so there's been a little bit of, well, I can go to this height using the states as long as I use their setbacks. I'm not in the setbacks, but why can't I go to the, you know, like, so there's,
So
it
we're,
needs to be clear that
Yeah.
you're either taking one path or the other.
okay,
And it probably, well, it's a decision for the planning board to make, is which path. Do you want both paths available or one path? Because you know that, you have to have, that the state allows, right, what's under the state law exists. And then you can decide what you want, if you want any further relief or use.
I guess maybe what we can start with is trying to do what we did with.
I can
the
do that.
OSRD.
Yep.
and the cluster.
If you-
Just put the comparison next to each
Yep.
other of what the advantages are one over the other. I mean, I think, you know, the idea of the as of right ADU, which was the big push of the initial ordinance. If you are to revert more to the state, it's gonna result in a lot more zoning board activity for variance. Because
okay,
we gave it
That's
kind of the
not good.
relief valve of
Yeah.
having a, you know, we set the standard of, you know, the size criteria is very similar. But we set the standard for like an accessory structure. And the states takes more of a kind of a second principle structure, but smaller. And so we basically said, if you didn't comply with this, you can get a special permit. If we were to adopt something more by the state and then say, if you don't follow it, then what? What's the avenue of relief? Is it a special permit or is it variance? So I think we need to kind of look at those two, because we were basically trying to take advantage of that there's built infrastructure, there's garages, outbuildings that are already there that could maybe potentially be easily converted. And if you just apply the state standard, they don't need it. So I think we need to do a little bit of a comparison.
Right, and then if you think about it, if you have an application for an ADU under the state requirements and you go to the ZBA for a variance, in what instance would you ever meet the requirements for a variance? Probably aren't any. The only thing you would be meeting is saying, oh, my lot is undersized. You know what I mean? Like that's probably the reality. My lot is undersized, or I can't meet the setback because like
So-
there's a rock in the
the-
way or so, you know what I mean? It's gotta be related to the
So-
soil shape or topography, not the size.
And that's why it has a special permit relief rather
Right.
than.
Right.
variance.
Right, and so when are you gonna have that instance?
What happens if you have an existing building that's non-conforming for setback? I mean, you tear the garage down and rebuild.
It's, what'd you say? So it's an existing building?
It's an existing building that does not meet the setbacks.
So right now you can go for a special permit.
Okay,
So there's a certain amount allowance of setback for an ADU, and if you satisfy that, you go to the building inspector. If you, and, you know, for all the requirements, if you meet all the requirements, you just get a building permit. If you violate any of those, it's a special permit. It's not a variance. Yeah, so that's the way it was set up to kind of to facilitate, not be such a hard and fast.
Yeah, yeah. And is the state size restrictions higher? or
I think there's
Is it the
parity.
same?
Yes,
Is
it's
it
like the
18?
half,
Is it 17? Oh, is it half of the house, but no
half
greater
of the
than?
house and not, or 900 feet. I
Oh,
think
it's
it's
like
almost the same.
There's a number.
It's 900
we're
square
a
feet.
thousand and we're at 1,000.
No, we're 900.
We're
feet.
900.
So it's the
Oh, so it
same.
can only be 900.
Right, doesn't the state law allow by right use of an existing building, even if it doesn't fit the current setbacks? As long as it's existing, you can convert by right?
I don't think so.
No. I mean, I think it's pretty, I thought it was pretty, when we looked at it, and it's been a while, granted, but I thought it was pretty strict on if you comply with X, Y, and Z, then you can do this as of right.
this says a maximum of 50% of the habitable floor area of a single family dwelling or 900 square feet, whichever is less.
So it's gonna.
But so the local ordinance can be more stringent than the state, right?
Not in this situation.
Nowadays, yeah.
Not when the state
So-
says
Well, how can,
ADUs are allowed as of right. It's.
then how
similar-
can we have two paths? How come it's okay to have two paths? Look,
Because
the
they
lo-
have different standards.
And you're allowing,
Ours is actually less restrictive. In some cases.
oh,
That's, I mean, you really need, it's hard to describe it.
yeah.
There are things like, our ADU ordinance requires one space per unit. Per ADU. The
Okay.
state's model, depending upon where you are, has no parking requirements. You can meet the, this is just a matter of whether it pencils out. Well. You can use the principal height requirements in the state ordinance. We have a lesser height requirement. But there becomes a practicality. If you're working with a maximum of 900 square feet, are you going to build something to 30 feet? Probably not.
Hmm.
But if you had a garage, that's the type of thing that there's just some differences between the two that are not, it's not really,
Doesn't that just open Pandora's box to have two?
Yes.
One approach
So
to
that's
Well,
like what you wanna do, yeah.
well, the question really is, do you want to just use the state ordinance? Which will take away, what we thought was a really good working ordinance that,
But don't we have a, some sort of ownership issue too, or do we take that away?
no, that's the other thing
That's the
that's
other
in
thing.
ours.
You have
It
to have
is
an
in ours?
occupancy.
Ours has a requirement for
For
owner
the-
occupancy of
for
either the
one
main
unit
house
or
or
the,
the ADU.
yes.
State does.
Oh,
State
yeah.
doesn't.
Right.
State allows it, any district that allows a single family home. If there's a two-family, you can do a state ADU. You can't do under our local ordinance. So again, it's just,
Yeah.
it's
It's-
really, it's almost, I mean, if you put together all these criteria, it's like, yes, they both do this. This one does that. This one does that. I mean, it's kind of a,
But from a permitting, if somebody wants to do it and we're forcing them into a situation where they've got to look at one or the other, right?
well, they basically need to choose their approach. There are two scenarios where they can go to the building commissioner for a permit. And if they don't meet that requirement, they can go for a special permit right now. If we were just to have the state ordinance, it would start to limit the possibilities. And if you don't satisfy it, you're just out. You can't do an ADU, because otherwise you'd have to pursue a variance. So this is why we kind of like said, let's see how this works out, because
Right.
the state is not requiring you to adopt an ordinance at all. There's some communities that don't have anything in their bylaws or ordinances, and somebody can go to the building commissioner and say, saw this thing that the state did, I want to do one of these, and has to review it under that and issue the permit or not.
It's interesting, if the state is doing the ADU because it wants to encourage it as of right, then is the intent to allow it with a variance, or is it only allowed as of right? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make any sense. The state's saying, here, you can do an ADU as of right, and if you don't meet these requirements, you can get a variance to do this thing that we're saying you can do as of right, because then it's not, as of right, so you shouldn't be able to do it at all. Right?
Yeah, it's a little dichotomous.
Yeah,
By right or not.
or
Right.
go get a variance. Yeah, that seems like there should be some way to be able to say no variances.
The other thing is I think it highly. This is not over.
Can I
Because
share
that
my
is the thing that most neighborhoods, reasons why most neighbors will accept an ADU, because there is an owner on site. And I know that gets back to the discrimination against people who rent, because they're considered not to be as responsible, but in fact, so maybe it is a good thing that the state has eliminated that, because in some ways. it's
Did you just read that?
Okay. Good job.
Chat did that?
Doesn't mean it's all correct. though.
No,
yeah.
doesn't mean it's all
That's why we're
correct.
reviewing it.
but it's-
But yeah, right, so the size limit is interesting because 50% of the habitable space, right, so if it's like a large home, you can have a pretty large ADU.
Except
Or
if-
900, whatever is less, though.
No, the state is different, max, oh, okay, right.
Isn't it?
Whatever's smaller.
Yeah, it's ever small. So in no circumstance can it be less, more than 900 feet. 900. So if I have a building that the 50% doesn't get me to 900, I have less than 1,800, I can only do 50%. I can, I
Yeah.
mean, not 1,800, I have 1,600,
Right.
so I can only do 1,800. I mean, 800.
800,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
So it's yeah, okay, gotcha. Whichever is lesser. Yes, whichever is lesser. Right.
Is that one space required, the state parking requirement?
So for example, Suzanne, could we keep our parking requirement?
Not within the
Not for
half
the
mile.
ADU.
For certain areas, that's the maddening part. I made a really ugly map. Applying it, and
Yeah.
it's not everywhere.
But the bus, was that still that's still a,
I think
the
that.
bus stop is like a bus route.
Is it a
So
bus route?
Cada
It's because it's
is
gonna be,
almost all of the city.
But you could argue CADA has on-demand, whatever, right? So,
It's a fixed route,
It's fixed route. That's the way the
Okay.
CMR was written.
so it would be like all of
It would have been
Essex
great
Ave.
if they asked for input on this before.
Right.
Or if they just did.
Is there a CADA on Essex Ave? Does it go to no, on Western Ave to Magnolia, it goes there, so that all of Western Ave would have no parking required.
Yeah, that kind of separate ownership thing that we had is good.
It's interesting, but if you had a duplex, they could be co-op. You could have, do you know what I'm saying? An ADU is just a smaller version of a duplex.
with different.
But it could be standalone. So
Yeah,
now
it
you
can
could
be
have,
standalone.
now you can have 3 units.
Yeah.
You got a duplex, somebody can propose an ADU.
Yeah.
As a standalone.
But I'm just saying in terms of, but we have a unusually generous duplex allowance that most codes do not, so it doesn't become a matter of, I have a duplex or, you know, a single and a ADU. Because in most of these communities, a ADU is by definition was on a single family.
So it's interesting, if you have a duplex, you can do an attached ADU. In the state.
Yep.
You turn it to a 3-family.
Well, you've just created a 3-family.
If you have,
If it's
if you
attached.
have a commercial building in a residential district, you could do it.
Attached.
Yeah.
Put it on the
Detached.
3rd floor? No, but what about attached? That's the question, right? Can
Yeah,
you
that-
put a 3rd floor on as an ADU, 900 square foot apartment on your commercial building?
So like this,
That's not a bad thing.
this building right here, the insurance company could
Yeah.
conceivably do it because Central Civic District has a lot of single family homes.
And has no setbacks, right?
No, this,
There's
Are there
setbacks.
setbacks? But it
But it
wouldn't
could be,
comply.
it could just be a single housing, it doesn't have to be. an ADU.
But there's no way you could put an ADU on that lot and comply with no setbacks.
No.
You see, an ADU is supposed to be a
An
small
ADU,
unit attached to a single family house. That is it's in above the garage or it's in the walkout, whatever. It's distinctly different from a duplex because a duplex, the second unit is generally typically the same size as the first unit. And so, you know what I'm saying here, because we allow duplexes so generously, a duplex and a single family with an ADU essentially in terms of unit count.
Oh, yeah,
Because an ADU is by definition small.
Yes.
So it's. But we're unique. in that.
Are
We're
we?
not unique, we're unusual. As I say, because duplexes are not allowed by right in most residential zones in most cities.
In Massachusetts?
I don't think so. I may be wrong, but my reading of the codes that I've looked at.
No, a lot are single family only.
Oh, yeah,
Like
I mean, can you
a whole
imagine,
lot Of them are.
can you imagine in
especially
Weston
North Shore.
being able to build a duplex in an R? In an R10 or an R20?
We've also had an example of multifamily. that was proposed.
Yeah,
Not under
And
the
it
state,
complies?
you can't,
Stop it.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the use of it is, it's just that district allows a single.
Yeah,
family,
yeah,
which is-
And they can find the space on the lot that complies with setbacks? See, I
If
thought
they
that was
can.
the challenge of
If
it
they
all.
can.
Is
Yeah.
that the setbacks
Yeah,
are
I mean, you still have the
Right.
setbacks, but I think
Yeah.
that's the problem with what's happening is the two are getting,
Yeah, I can see somebody
they're
coming
getting
in and
mixed.
trying to be
So
like,
They're like, oh, well, this says I can do it, but I just don't meet the setbacks, so can I get a special permit to do that?
And that's why we need that's
mean,
why we
it's-
need to
They
clarify.
could still, no, they couldn't, because that, again, that's the thing, the threshold for our ordinance is there is only a single family on the property. So it's accessory to a single family. And they're saying, well, I can do it under the states, but I just can't meet, so they're using it as kind of a
Yeah.
justification or leverage to try to get a special permit,
Mhm.
which is causing.
And it, a
Isn't
lot,
that just a recipe for a lawsuit?
who's,
Well,
on whose half, on, you mean the applicants?
Yeah,
No,
no, they're two
they lose
separate
it.
ordinances. It's like, I mean, I can't come up with a really good analogy, but it's basically like you're using two different ordinances at the same time, which wouldn't make sense.
yeah, you can't.
You know, you have dimensional setbacks for a multifamily, I mean, you have dimensional setbacks for a single family. And you want to use the, you know, the single family setback dimensions for your multifamily. It's like, no,
Can't do it.
that's not, well, they're allowed to use it for that. Yeah, but it's different use, it's different permit. So,
And by the way, this distinction is like in California, Oregon, and Washington now. Any lot in a single family zone that now by right can build 2 or 3 units. By right, because
Yeah,
there's such a housing crisis. And so that,
right,
that sort of single family, multifamily thinking is getting a little bit
Yeah.
cloudy, and it's really a density issue as opposed to a number of units, but
I think New Hampshire said something very similar.
very likely, I don't know. I think Portland,
So
Maine has as well.
this is troubling me, this takeaway, any requirement for the homeowner to reside in,
Mm,
and we can't do that?
not if they permitted it under the state ordinance.
mhm.
No, I know, but I mean, if we change our own ordinance, but I don't know why we would do that, because they would
No,
just use
we
the
can't.
state, wouldn't they?
Can't do it. It's preempted. So the
Okay.
state has preempted the zoning ordinance with
Okay.
regard to putting ADUs.
Okay,
If you think
then,
about it
then
that way.
can you repeat again what you said about variance versus special permit? If we just bring our I mean, like, what is even the point of rewriting our ordinance? Why don't we just use the state ordinance and be done with it? Is there anything in our ordinance that,
You mean delete the special permit for ADUs and just adopt the state's
Yeah.
ADU as of right?
right?
Right.
Like,
Only,
is,
right, I mean,
Because that would harmonize it all, but then it's what you guys worked on with the ADUs to,
I know, but
you know,
like,
the-
everything I wanna do isn't allowed because it's different than the state.
Although I have to say,
Standard.
yeah, I mean, the only reason you would keep it is because if somebody, I mean, I'm not quite sure if you could do this, if you did, you could. 'Cause it's allowed in the law, but if there's some way to stop, to make the burden higher, to get a variance for the as of right ADU under the state law. And then, so what you would be doing is you'd be, because then you can't, because if you have, right now, right, if you comply, you get your permit from the
Mhm.
building inspector. If you don't comply, you go to the ZBA for a variance, you shouldn't be able to meet, you would be doubtful to meet those requirements for a variance. So what you could do in then way is incentivize people to do our special use of ADU for a special permit. But I don't know why, what's the public
I don't know,
purpose of
yeah,
that?
I don't know, I don't know who would.
Just because you
care.
don't want it to be
Yeah.
rental units, like what's the public?
No, well, I want the
purpose for that?
homeowner to live in it, and I want to require a parking space. And things like that.
And what's the public policy for having it owner occupied?
I mean, that was,
It's in-
that was
it's
the
in-
reason why I think it was so publicly accepted.
It
It was
was-
really truly,
Yeah,
you know, around this
It's-
policy
it's-
theory, whatever you want to call it,
for-
that people
to
needed
give-
to have more out of their
right.
property.
It's to
be
give
able stay.
homeowners more options with their properties, but if it's not, if the ADU is not owner occupied, what's the difference between that and 2 family?
There is no difference. That's the
There is
whole point.
One is just smaller.
Yeah, it's just, one is
Yeah.
restricting the other.
So you
isn't.
just make
In
create.
which case,
This
I
is
mean,
creating more
it's
housing.
really the standalone. Because if you can do a two-family by right,
Mhm.
oh, other than conversion with exterior change,
Yeah.
which we'll get to at some point. But I mean, like, that use is permitted, so somebody wouldn't likely come under an ADU, an internally ADU, because why would they restrict themselves? Because there's the
Yeah,
ownership
yeah, no, I get it.
restriction, there's the
Yeah.
size limitation, so
I
they just
know.
do a two-family. But if you're talking about so really what it results in is, it's about the standard.
It's about a bigger- Right, a big enough lot. Right, that if somebody with a large yard. or something,
Right.
with the third unit, fourth unit.
So it doesn't sound like we should agonize over this too much. We should just adopt the state.
I think.
Delete the special permit.
Yeah.
adopt the state.
But create so it's in our ordinance so people can find it.
Yes.
And I happen to, it's interesting because I try to look at it all sides. The reason ADUs are, ordinances are popular is the ownership and the parking and the size restriction. Because neighbors then feel that it's a sort of hidden unit, nobody sees it, there's no parking impact on the street, and the owners live in either one or the other. Generally, an older couple would move into the ADU and rent the lower, but generally, the main primary is owner occupied and the ADU is rental. And the idea being is it's quiet, there are no negative impacts, and you can see why it's so acceptable. But the owner requirement is, I think, potentially a violation of fair housing. Because it discriminates against people who can't afford to buy, but can afford to rent. On the old, as I said, on a perception that is not fair, reasonable, or legal, that people who rent aren't as good as, or as reliable, or, whatever, as we are in our neighborhood, and we don't want them here. And so I can see why the state went with the less restrictive ownership pattern, and I think it's
That
consistent with
supersedes
law.
our ordinance already, so.
So
Yeah, there's definitely arguments to be made on both sides, right? That's the
there-
whole notion of. Sorry, go ahead, no, go ahead.
if we do adopt the state ordinance as our ordinance, is there any way to give some relief to the ZBA? In other words, not have it all be variances if people aren't. Oh, no, there's just no variances.
Right.
Yeah,
If
it's just
they're in
being-
compliance.
Yeah, you just say. So they'll end up at the ZBA if they have a non-conforming something,
Right, if they don't comply.
but. Otherwise, we should say no variances,
What if there is a way? to
right?
do it?
Like, cause we said
I
no
wonder
variance,
if there's a way
we
to do
said-
it by doing the use.
we said no variances in the original one, I believe.
Table, right?
No, we said no variance to allow a second.
Oh.
But you could get relief from height setback.
I wonder if there's a way you could do it in your use table by saying. ADUs are allowed provided you meet these dimensional requirements. If you, and any lot in any district. If you make the ADU does not meet the setbacks, the use is not allowed. And then you can't get a variance because you're not allowed to do the use. That work?
I think.
I can pull
I'm
up,
feeling like it's not quite as simple as just adopting. I mean, what do we do for all the special permits we've already issued under current
Yeah, they
ordinance?
become
You
non-
have to. Yeah, you just sort of, I mean,
grandfather
you wouldn't say
them
we
in.
just adopt it, you craft it, right?
But you wouldn't do much crafting because the standards are the standards. Anything that was developed under the ADUs we've got just become non-conforming they were legal when they were built and met the code in place. Now there's a new code. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. And they're already developed. So what would be the problem? I developed under the old rules and I couldn't do that,
Special. I mean, they have a special existing
Yeah.
special permit there.
Yeah.
The use is existing under that.
New sense of how many have been
Built.
created.
Yeah.
Now,
That's
to start
the folder.
reporting,
Yeah, some people,
That's
well,
Building department.
yes.
and of course you have to get a
They-
building
they
permit to do
require
it, right? Because you're
reporting.
putting in a separate kitchen or,
For this year, they'll report it.
you couldn't sneak an ADU in, could you? You're not
It doesn't,
buying
it doesn't strike me as it's a issue to actually expend a lot of time and energy on. I think sort of the best thing to do would be to just adopt the state standards and move forward. And actually, what I've learned out here in California that sort of supersedes the ADU discussion, and I'm not sure if the building codes are the same in Massachusetts, but here I discovered that if you leave a door between the two units, it's not considered an ADU. It's not considered a separate dwelling unit. So we could actually have people bypassing the whole situation simply by leaving a door between two living spaces. And this whole discussion is sort of mute at that point.
Yeah, but my understanding is that the ADU, and I know the ones that I've helped write, and it's been a long time, is that the ADU has to have a separate entrance for property, it's because it has to do with renter owner, leasing requirements, and because you have to be able to have access to the outdoors without going directly through someone else's unit. I don't know how that thing you're talking about works in California. I'd have to
I'm converting my parents' house to living spaces for my two sisters, and I was planning on applying for an ADU permit, which is a streamlined process in California. It's a by right situation, but the permitting costs in this county would still be over $7,000 to create an ADU. And when I talked to the building inspector, he said, if you leave a door between the two units, you're going to save a lot of money. And my permitting costs were about $750 versus the $7,000 for an ADU. And again, I don't know if Massachusetts is similar, but I would suspect that a lot of people, particularly families trying to create a space for an elderly parent or their kids, would choose the lesser route and just bypass all this discussion and do that if it's allowed in Massachusetts. I would assume Massachusetts probably isn't any more restrictive than California in this regard.
point I want to make, so your sisters are related, so does one sister has a door, has to walk through the other sister's unit to get out?
No, they both have separate access to the exterior.
Separate.
It was just a point of leaving an interior opening so that you could pass from one unit into the other, and it changed the whole
That I
permitting
can
process.
understand. Okay, that's different, yeah.
Some municipalities in Massachusetts had that as a requirement for an ADU. That an ADU had to have that interior door access because they were so focused on the ADU as being a relative. Right?
Exactly.
It had to be related. There has to be an interior door, which then ensures that it's an ADU versus a duplex.
But that's a violation. But to require it to be only a member of a family, but I think violates fair housing law.
Oh, yeah, we.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I understand the thinking, but it's just,
Hey, Sean, and yeah, in that situation, is it considered a single family or two units?
We never got that far down the discussion because when I heard I was going to save $7,000, I just said, okay, I'll put a door in.
But then you can still have a whole separate kitchen and no one's gonna blink?
Yeah, we have two kitchens. We added a bathroom. The separate living room, bedroom, and that they're essentially two units except for the door, which they said we can block with appliances. And so my older sister's washer dryer unit is going to be blocking the door between the two units. So it won't be usable. And the building inspector said that's absolutely fine.
and it seems to me it's
I know.
it's taking advantage, I mean, it
Let's get back.
doesn't make much sense. And for that matter, you can live in a single family house and put a whole separate kitchen down in the basement. Can't
No,
you?
you can't, not here,
No, you can't. You can't, put a kitchen in your,
No. not a
It's
full
still-
kitchen.
not a full kitchen,
Mm-mm.
okay.
Cause then you start, that's a duplex without a permit.
Okay, well,
So-
that I'm kind of trying to think of it through, but this thing, the door is a really an artificial distinction as well.
Okay, well, we're not gonna do that.
Yeah.
So one of the main differences is the state model is you follow all the dimensional requirements for the principal structure. So you have,
Ooh, which are a lot
which are much,
harder
yes.
to follow.
So you have no height limitation other than the height allowance for the district, 30 feet.
Yeah.
And you have to meet the setbacks for the district. Our ordinance allows you to follow the accessory setbacks
Which
if you
we're
limit the height to 20 feet. And then in principal setbacks, you're allowed to 24. So those are the real spatial
Mm,
dimensional
mm.
differences between the two. That, so our ordinance kind of promotes smaller, closer to the
Right, which is what-
setback.
Which is,
you know,
which is the
garage
public policy
structures.
that we're
Right.
trying to,
So if you
Um,
just adopt the state, then you kind of take away,
Mm,
unless, I mean, the state model says you can also basically make either what we defined as the true ADU in the accessory setbacks by special permit, or you just make the whole thing much less restrictive and say you can use, you can go to 20 feet with the accessory setbacks, you can go to 30 feet with the setbacks and just leave it at that.
Because we do our short-term rentals as of right. Is that correct? That was a question.
We have a limitation on
Yeah, we have a
short-term
cap.
rental in ours as well,
in
in
what-
the ADU ordinance.
Oh, you
No,
cannot.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say short.
Yeah.
I was thinking, we allow ADUs as of right.
We do.
Okay, that's what I wanted to.
Do, and
So,
then
I see.
any dimension that you don't satisfy, you can go get a special.
As opposed to a
Special permit.
variance.
So
Okay. Alright,
is
alright.
the balance? I mean, then there's the parking piece, there's some design elements that were in there, and there's the
There's
owner
some
occupied,
design.
all of that, if we're gonna,
Oh, I see.
you're either getting rid of all of it, or you're in a situation where if you're in the accessory,
Yeah,
you have to be owner occupied in one of the two, and you have to require a parking lot, a parking space.
Offsite.
I mean,
off-street.
depending upon, that's also a little bit different because it's spatial in the community. It's not
Yeah.
everywhere.
So I wonder if you,
It's.
yeah. So
Yeah.
if you take your as of right ADU from the state, you take your state law. And then we adopt that, and then we say, if you don't comply with the dimensions, I don't know if it's a special permit or variance, and you need to seek relief, then you have to have owner occupied parking space.
Yeah. But that's like, that's kind of,
Because then you're not allowed, because it's designed for as of right ADUs.
but
Actually,
And if you're not able to comply with the as of
Right.
rightness, then you say, okay, sure, we can
you
give you a
mean,
variance.
so standards of the variance, you're saying?
Yeah, here's you can apply for a variance. If variance is granted for an ADU, that's,
you need special permit. Right?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
if
think
you
a
don't
special permit.
comply.
Yeah, if you don't
with this-
comply, special
If you don't
permit,
comply with the.
but then
state's
you also
provision,
have to do this.
Then you do
this.
X, Y, and Z as a condition to the
Yeah,
grant of any
that's,
relief. under the
It's not
zoning
a bad
ordinance. Right? You
that
have
kind
your
of
parking,
harmonizes it too.
Right.
Um,
Then you don't have to do two separate processes.
And not only that, but then someone can't come in and say, but I can do what the state, so what do you?
Right.
So I
Yeah,
can-
sure
I
you
can go
can, but
get
you
my
gotta meet all
variance.
the requirements. We just downloaded the state.
Well, I'm just thinking this, it's just this kind of, I'm not saying right or wrong, but so it so happens that two people want to build 900 square feet, 24-foot height. One of them has to go into a side yard setback. They now have to do all the, like, you know what I mean? Like, what's the difference between, I think there's that
And then
owner
that's not
occupied
fair?
piece that you have to think about. Like, why? Because of 1 foot, somebody now has to
Has
do
to
all these
owner
other
occupied,
things where that other person doesn't. It's
Let's
just,
think
it's just
about it.
equal treatment. at some point, we have to
Well,
figure
I
out.
mean, you would look at it in terms
But
of,
there's different aspects of it.
Yeah,
One's
because it's
around
gonna
the
be-
building and maybe there should be more
Right.
scrutiny if it was closer, but we've already said if you kept that height limitation, you can go to the accessory setback. So, I mean, we have to kind of like look through
you'd have to like.
the
piece it.
dimensional piece, the parking piece,
And home.
and then the owner occupation piece and decide what should you be required to do?
Right, I just don't like the notion that we could do the ADU.
It just
as-
stinks because all these things were built in and got
Yeah,
public support because they were like, all right,
Yeah,
it's gonna be somebody renting up,
to their
they're
grandma.
gonna live on their property and they're gonna rent a piece of property. You can't
Right.
rent both of them.
Not to
And now
to
it's,
anybody.
Yeah, right.
now it's, you know,
French is
But there
fine.
is something to that. You either meet the basic state requirement, and if you want something else, then there's a higher standard.
yeah, but the
that-
interesting
is that
thing is
business?
like you may prefer you're issuing a special permit over what's done with the state ordinance. Which we can do nothing about. You mind if you
And then-
don't
Yeah,
go
yeah,
over this
yeah,
way?
yeah, yeah.
Put over the setback.
No, but this is a good discussion.
No, it
So-
is. I mean, it kind of,
It
I mean,
really,
there has
the
to be
state
another
is not productive.
municipality that has as of right ADUs and is trying to harmonize this now,
Too.
right?
Yeah, that's. a good-
maybe what will be helpful.
Like, that's what we need is.
We can talk about meeting sequences,
Yeah,
what we want
because
to
we
pick
need
up.
to wrap up.
Do you
Yeah,
wanna-
anyway.
If you want to continue on this one, maybe what we should do is actually bring in some of the permit applications that we've already received for ADUs, just
See
to
how many
see,
there are.
just to see what those things look like. I mean, we talked about 20 feet and 24 feet. 24 feet was the max. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't know what people have been asking for relief from those dimensions either. I mean, it could be that there
True,
was
true,
already a
true.
building that was 28 feet or 27
Right.
feet.
It's not.
But now the
Garage.
state is gonna say, you can build something that's 30, but again, 900 square feet, what does that actually look like? Is somebody gonna build to that
I don't
height?
think that's gonna inform our discussion though, because we're still stuck with
Right.
with the state that says what you can do. It doesn't really matter what everybody's been wanting
Well,
to do.
no, it does, because we allow a lot more things, but just at lesser height.
I know.
Yeah,
So
and,
do you wanna get rid of that entirely and just say, use the state?
and the other thing you have to think about is, since the state allows that, you know that people are gonna be seeking those variances, so you wanna capture that aspect of it.
Okay, yes.
Right, because
Right.
there's gonna be hardly, I mean, I don't, I could be wrong, but I doubt there's very few properties that are gonna be ADUs that comply.
Well, I
With the
think,
state,
I think
with the
the
state.
only
Yeah,
thing you're gonna
that's
be
okay.
able to capture though is the height rather than the owner occupied or the parking. Right, because, yeah. Okay, well, next steps for this would be to somehow draft an ordinance that is compliant with the state, but
Shows the options.
shows the options of which, and there's really only three issues, right? There's owner occupied, the height and the parking.
So,
Yeah, Setback is the height.
No.
well, dimensional requirement.
Yeah, okay, right.
Yeah.
The setback and the height are tied.
Yeah,
You mentioned the park.
So you gotta comply. So
Yeah,
you
you
can't do
have
an
to-
undersized lot.
right.
You have to have a plan, fully compliant.
Right.
So all the pre-existing non-conforming, you get.
Oh. Even non-conforming can?
And I will send everybody a copy and paste what ChatGPT said about the differences, so they'll just take it with a grain of salt.
Not bad for.
Read it for yourselves and,
With the reference points too.
yeah, and I'll send an email with that, with our ordinance, the state ordinance and and ChatGPT analysis.
Yeah, I
And
have
then,
this annotated version.
Actually, no.
State law. I'll create a
Okay,
folder.
you
in
make the state
I'll
model.
create a folder in the one that we have that's
Yeah.
background and case studies.
Mhm.
I think there's already one for ADU in there, maybe, not
Maybe.
sure.
Uh-huh.
But the current ordinance, this, you could send me a PDF,
Okay,
your comparison.
yeah,
And it would be nice to know how many ADUs have been.
It's still, it's hard to get that right now.
Is it?
Hard to get it
You
right
can't
To the
now.
viewpoint, they're working on.
You will be able
through
to,
the software.
but the field was not
you know.
Created,
created.
so they're going back. and
So
getting
people
together.
were putting them in as work on a single family home. Or work on a single family lot, and then you have to go into detail.
Fine.
So there wasn't just a field.
Yeah,
Okay,
we
we
need
do
to
have
vote.
that.
Yeah,
see
I
that.
need
Oh
to-
my, look at that.
Hold on, I need a motion to adjourn.
So
And
moved.
so Greg, why don't you and I get together later and
Yeah.
talk about?
Yep.
So move.
All in favor?
Oh, do we get a second?
We have to
You're all-
Oh,
I'll-
second.
I'll second.
Roll call vote, please. Oh, I guess I'm doing that. Member Henry.
Yes.
Yes. And I say yes. Thank you.
Okay.
And we'll see you upstairs. Suzanne.
All right, thank you.
Coming. That was great.
So, it's interesting.
That is so cool.
Join anytime.